Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks, Bram. Hey, team, what's going to happen is Dirk knows me pretty well. He's been to a few of my presentations. Mine are really open, so if you have a question, just let me know. If you agree or disagree with something, again, just let me know. There's different ways of doing things. So when I open up my presentation, it's just going to, I'll get into the rhythm of talking about things, but please just making sure that if you have something that I'm covering, and I've looked at some of the questions you have sent, so we can cover pretty much all of those, I think, fairly easily. We've also got a bit of footage that you guys, that was sent to me from your finals, I guess it was, which I was pretty impressed by the crowd and the celebrations afterwards. So it looked pretty like it was a fun day. So I've got some clips from that as well that we can maybe have a look right at the very end and see if we can marry in what we talk about to what we're seeing on the field. So you all okay with that, guys? Thumbs up, so good. Brilliant. So I'll share my screen now. Hopefully I can find what I'm looking for. All good, everybody can see that? Yeah, brilliant. I'll just try and move you guys around so I can see you better. And I'll start this. Okay, so ball in the contact and the whole decision-making side of it is kind of something that we see a lot of it in the world at the moment, and it's all very much the same. And a lot of this information that you'll get will be pretty similar to things you know. But I also think this is an area of the game where possibly good coaches like yourselves can start to make a difference and think a little bit more outside the box. So for me, like, game-based prep is usually where we'd start with our contact session. I've actually got a contact session I'm doing with some young ladies tonight. So for me, it comes down to how we warm them up and how we get them ready. Now, I do notice that many of you are coaching younger players. And what we tend to do sometimes with the younger players is we throw them straight into a contact situation without a lot of education or not a lot of fun. Sometimes it can be quite a dour part of the game. So we look for like game-based activities for these younger kids. So I find even in the warm-up, same with the men as well, we'll get race type things happening. So you can see I've got a couple of diagrams there where we might just have a simple race to get a cone, because the breakdown is a race. So I always see the breakdown as a race. It's a race to get space over the ball. It's a race to move the ball on. Primarily before that, it's a race to get to space. So that's how I see the breakdown, and many coaches like me see it in a very similar way. So trying to build some intensity into your warm-ups, I think, will carry through and bring a little bit of intensity into your activities once you start to put some detail in there. You guys can see those diagrams okay? So there's no rocket science in there at all. It's basically, the first one was about, I just got to move you guys around so I can see. The first one is mainly just racing to a cone, and you just offset them so there's no collisions. Then a race to a ball by calling a number or a color, and then it's a race to just one ball. So it's kind of getting their hands onto the ball as quick as they can. I'll show you something later on at the end of about in that match that I told you about that you can see a little bit about how this area is done. And I must admit it was done fairly well in that game. From there, we'd move on to activities that have people getting up and down off the ground real quick. So again, this is all part of your warm-up, guys, and it's all part of how you design your activities around that. Always have them getting up off the ground. That's probably the biggest thing that's going to help them win that race. So don't just start standing on your feet like we normally do. Get them on the ground, get them rolling around even if you have to, and then on a whistle or a call, move them to some sort of space really quickly. And I think that, again, starts to bring some intensity, because the thing we lack in a lot of our activities is intensity. And you guys as ex-players probably like me, when you watch an activity that's got no intensity, you get quite frustrated. So just be aware of that. Then I look at activities that talk about that dictate their height and their running height and their carrying height, etc. So that can be done. I'll show you some little examples of that later on that I've done in the past with other teams. And then this on the bottom is combination activities, which is things I've been doing a little bit more of recently, where we might go from a simple activity, or maybe catch pass activity or something. Then on a blow of a whistle, we're straight into a breakdown or a contact activity off to the side of it immediately. So there's no set structure of arrival. The players have to learn to react and move quickly into a breakdown scenario. So it's kind of fun to play around with that one, and that's, for the bigger guys, it's usually brings a bit of value as well, because that can allow them to have a little bit of physicality. Okay, I can't see everybody on the screen because my little thingy didn't move that well, but all good so far, everybody? Beautiful. Okay. So roles of the breakdown, and so let's talk about roles of the breakdown. Has anybody got an idea? What's the first role of the breakdown? Where does the breakdown start?
Two players from one player from each team contesting the ball.
Yep. That's the straight out of the law book definition. Yeah, nice, Sean. What else? Where else does a breakdown start?
After a tackle.
After a tackle. Yep. So did anything happen before that?
Before the tackle.
When you're running into contact, managing how you position your body to make it easier for people to join or make it harder.
Yep, Henry, you hit it there, mate, and then you let it slip away. So you were right there, and I thought you nailed it. But anybody else? Because Henry, it was very close. Anybody?
Balling into contact.
Yeah, the ball into contact. Now we're starting to talk. So for me, like, hey guys, remember, these are my opinions, and you're going to strike rugby coaches around the world, and we all know that we've got a lot of opinions, or else we wouldn't have the job. But for me, we're close to how we take the ball into contact is going to define what happens. So it's that pre-contact stuff that is really important, and often the part of the game that we don't coach. We coach the ball presentation a lot of the time. We will coach the removal of the players and the clean out. We often don't really look at how we take the ball into contact. I'll show you some clips later on too from that match, but for me, it's the role of the ball carrier, and it all starts here. So if you get your ball carry right, chances of success are heightened. So quite a few of you have talked about LQB, lightning quick ball, and how you want to get that, or how you want to get quicker ball. A good carry is a big way to get to that place. A poor carry often ends up in a bit of a clutter, and there's a lot of bodies over the ball. Ball presentation can be quite difficult. So for me, it comes down to the carry. And in our pre-contact, you notice there's a common theme through here about their feet. Pre-contact, through contact, and post-contact. It's about keeping our feet under us. And if you harken back now to most of your breakdown work or your tackle work, one of the first things we yell out to our players is go to ground. Get to ground. When you get to the ground, that's where it finishes. Like there's your continuity, or there's your momentum kind of staggers or stammers for a while. There are times, obviously, where you need to get to ground because you're losing that fight. But if you're not losing that fight, keep fighting. So, we talk about. So I'll go right through some of these. So in the early parts here, I talk about position early, and for me, that sets a great platform about positioning early. So when you're coaching younger players or players who haven't had a lot of rugby, they just kind of run around the corner and grab the ball and away they go. Or they get around the corner and they carry. But they're often running on an angle. They're often about 1.5 meters away from the halfback who can basically hand them the ball. You know, they usually haven't thought about any other members of their team and they just want to truck it up. So positioning early for me is about working to find the space that you wish to then go forward and attack from, as opposed to go lateral or just stand in the blinking way. So positioning early is really important. So we talk a lot about L lines and C lines, and I'm sure you talk of similar terminology, where an L line is that big loopy run where the players run back 10 meters just to go forward 2. Where an L line that gets you straight out, ready to catch the ball, and then you go straight ahead. So make sense? Yep, not too difficult. So getting into position early so we can see what's happening, where our threats and where our opportunities are, is a good place to start. So your players need to be fit or they need to be smart. So if you're not that fit, you need to be smart. So that will get you in a good position so you can go straight up the field as opposed to going sideways or hacking back in and taking away space from the backs, if it's a forward that's carrying. Same thing happens for the backs though. Evasion, we always talk about hitting a weak shoulder, but how often do we train that? You know, we often we'll talk about it. I'll show a little foot pattern that we use and some video footage in a moment of how we do that. Feet under to accelerate. We need to accelerate into pre-contact, not decelerate. Square up, carry the ball in 2 hands. So all that's pretty easy. Again, when we go through contact, hips and shoulders are pretty important here. Hips and shoulders, we tend to actually physically look for contact. So 2 people are running here. There's a guy over here who's coming in to tackle. Instead of trying to evade them, we think, oh, crikey, there's a guy over there. I'll go hit him. So we run over, we drop our shoulders, we get our shoulders on awkward angles, we turn our hips so our feet are no longer going forward, and we then put ourselves in a weak position to go into contact. We might get a good smack early up, but there's no continuity from that. Really common. We get players taking a massive stride into contact, so their feet are now no longer under them. They turn side on, so they've now looking away from the try line where they want to go to. And they try and crab walk a little bit of momentum if they can get it. Big guys will get it initially, but they also, usually their body height, their body weight is too far forward. So little guys like me, or really gnarly number 7s out there, can just rip them to the ground and hunt the ball. And I saw a lot of that in those finals rugby that I've got clips of later on. So there's a lot of that sort of thing goes on. We talk about pump, 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 which is your legs, and fight, fight, fight. So we fight to stay up. And we don't fight to go to the ground. We fight to stay up. When we lose the fight, then we'll fight to go to ground. Apart from that, no longer. Post-contact. Again, this is our decision-making here, and this is the area, I think, where the biggest growth can happen. The French do it really well. Fijians do it really well, and that is offload and keeping continuity. And that is where the game is going. The team who offloads accurately will win the World Cup, is my thoughts on that, as long as their set piece is strong. I think a team that can offload effectively and accurately and maintain momentum will be very hard to stop, because all the defense coaches in the world do not want to coach against teams that have momentum. It makes their jobs a lot harder. So looking at the decision-making there and how you can work on that. We say score the try, and is what we think. I think I've got a little video on this. So this is in Ireland. Can you all see that okay? It might run a bit jerky, guys, but I'll see if it runs. I want to make sure you don't make a double movement by lifting up and coming back. You almost push the ball along the ground to keep our top going around. Okay, we all know this here. The bad guys will attack it every time. Okay? So we'll take those to the front. Taking sure, top shoulder stays closed the whole time. Almost push the ball on the ground. Right. Pretty good there, Rory. Nice smile. So, did that run smooth enough for you guys to see that and understand? Because sometimes it's a bit jerky.
It was a bit laggy, but it was clear.
You got the idea. So if I drag, it might be a bit better. So as you can see here, this guy's a pretty good rugby player. So when he hits the ground, that's what we call scoring the try. I'm sure you've heard of it. And then what I want him to do is keep his top shoulder here low as opposed to up. So he's turned in like this instead of up like that. A good jackler will open up that top shoulder just like opening a can of worms. You know, just parts them up and away they go, and they can hunt that ball. So we'll do a lot of that. And the addition to that would be you'd bring an opposition in, you'd bring somebody to try and jackal that ball, so they work at really getting that ball back really quickly. So an easy activity, but one you can just chuck in part of your warm-up before you actually get into what you're doing. No questions so far, gents?
Well,
I just have a question. Really short. So when going into contact, we're going in low, and once we have that initial contact, we're going up. That's correct?
No,
I just missed it for a second.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the going up, because what we're doing now is we're going up. Physicality can kind of get the player into that sort of a position. So we're talking a lot about getting our guys. That's why their feet need to be under them, so they can travel through that way as opposed to up that way like we used to. We used to always talk about aeroplane taking off, but what's happening now, the players are a lot more physical than probably when we started using that sort of terminology. So a lot of guys just get peeled right back. I'll show you a clip, Henrik, of it near the end where you can see one of the guys goes into contact at a gazillion miles an hour, but then gets himself into a bad position, you know? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Cool. And I'll show you another activity that we do about that as well.
Another question, Dave.
Yep.
When the falling on the ball or scoring the try and then going back, what age do you practice it? Would you practice it also with youngsters or?
Yeah. I do, because it's amazing how that habit will carry them right through their life if you let that one get away. They're a little bit safer that way as well. Like little guys, you know, they have those little bony little shoulders, and sometimes they hit the ground quite badly, and they can get themselves into a bad situation on their shoulder. But if we can learn to score the try, I think for me it's a little bit safer because they're compact, you know, as well. Would you agree? Does that make sense?
Yeah, some of our coaches, they say when they are tackled, they land, of course, knees, hips, and then at the end the shoulder blade, I think.
Yeah.
In that way, they can also offload easier, and it's also safer than on the shoulder, they say. But yeah. So,
no, that's really interesting, because I've got no problem with the knee shoulder thingy. You know, I think that's quite good for the younger players. The offload thing, and I'm also a fan of that too. But I think you need to get that initial protection sometimes, you know, and that's where, as they get older, I think when you start to incorporate a lot of that decision-making activity, then you'll look at the different, I guess, different presentation methods, you know, as they get a bit older. But I'd be looking at, with kids, it's safety first, obviously. It's safety first, and then from there on, you can go the rest of the way. Is that all good?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Good question. Hey, thanks for that one. Okay, so this is the foot pattern that I talk about. It's the old 3-step, basically. So 1 step to get width, which puts us, which gets us outside. This is the power step. So that foot is down hard. Bad guy is here. So I just set it up with cones, and then we'll put a bad guy here. I'll show you in a minute. And then that's the gas pedal, and that's when they accelerate away. So it's getting away, that down, and square. So that just gets it nice and square. I've got a video here. Boys aren't doing it with a lot of enthusiasm, but so we're just looking at the guys get the width, foot down, gas. Get the width, foot down, and gas. So I've introduced the pads here because a lot of guys will go backwards before they go forward. So, and I think that last guy did it. So he's here. We want him to be able to backwards before he goes forward. So he just goes back before he goes forward. We want him to get used to pushing out to that width and getting it a lot quicker motion. So, so I come up with any gadgets that I can to make people, it slows them down a bit, like that guy there. A good rugby player, this guy. But see, he hasn't gone forward, this guy in the front here. He hasn't gone forward with that foot. So he's gone out, he's created that space that he wants, but he hasn't gone forward slightly. So he's kind of jinked across the field sort of deal, which has some benefits, but I want him to try and get used to going power real quickly and getting that power through that foot real fast. Your trainers, guys, will understand that sort of stuff way better than me. But it was a matter of getting, once this foot here hits the ground, that's when he has to accelerate through. A common mistake is they get their feet around the other way. So at the time here, if there's a defender here, this guy Dave, when he has his foot down, he then can drive that foot through, as opposed to his feet down the other way, where he can get jammed in and ends up being a real fight. Toughest man wins. So I think you understand what I'm talking about there, guys, eh? So we'll just do a lot of this sort of stuff. Now, these are professional players, so you've got the time to do this, but I'll give you a little example of how you can use this particularly with younger players, but I've actually done it with professional teams as well. It sounds like it's a little kid's way of doing things, but it works really well. So what we've done there, working on that. So we'll start at this stage. It's start about getting that footwork right. It's all about that initial ball carry that's going to win us these things. We look about acceleration, we talk about the weak shoulder, and we'll get them to square up. So try and when we do this, our shoulders and everything's going that way. All right? So these kids aren't that great, but they give it a crack. Make sure we get that good space going, boys. So actually, I'll go right back to that first guy then. This is what I'm talking about with his shoulder. See, this one's lower than that one, and he's actually initiated the contact himself. So he's gone and looking for that pad. We try to avoid that if we can. Make sure we get that good space. I think there's another example too. That's good gas, eh? Gas at the back of it. Put a pad up. Red. Good. See. So see how he took the backward step? See, none of these guys get this foot into this space here, that foot into that space before bringing that one through. So he gets that foot down eventually, but he's not going forward or square. You know, so those are the guys that get hit and then get pushed out into that space there. So we want them to be a little bit more physical and square up a little bit more. It's only minor, but it gives a good message. So what you can do, guys, if you want to, you can put a pole here into this space so they then can't get any extra width. So if you want them to really square up, that's squaring up is it's huge in catch pass. It's huge in, I think it's pretty huge in our carries as well, because what's happening at these days, we want to preserve the space on the field so that we can attack through it, and wasting it through little incorrect running lines, and that can really frustrate the heck out of the backs for a start. But can also make your forwards have to run further to get around the corner to a breakdown if a back does it. So understanding squaring up is really important. See that guy there, he's got the backward step, gets forward a bit, body height's a bit high, so he's kind of got buckled up a little bit there, as we talked about before, and hasn't driven through. These guys have never done this before, so that's one. Bit of patter, red. But it's a neat little activity to start, and this video is on the rugby site for those who, I think this one's on the rugby site. From there, we'd go out and we'd play a game, a footwork game. Basically, it's touch. And if you don't say any footwork, it's a turnover, and you just have to be quite harsh on them. And then, oops, see, I'm just going to go back because it's... if you look here, and offend is probably one of the early things we'll introduce before we even get to the breakdown. It's just making sure they move to one side. And they're just nice and tight with their fend, and you just introduce that. Obviously, from here, this is when we can start bringing in a lot of other things, and I'll show that in a moment. No questions, team? So this is, so far, all we've talked about is really our ball carrier. We haven't talked about the little out the back door pass yet, you know, or the hit the ground and pop, but those would be things that you would introduce into this part as well with your ball carrier. There's a couple of little setups you can do on that. So the roles of the support, for me, it's these things. So what does that mean to you guys? Anybody? Those 4 words. Yes, Billy?
Yeah, I mean, it's dependent on the situation, the breakdown situation, the decision for the ending of the threats, no threats. Play on the ground and pass the ball,
You're really hard to hear, Billy. Yeah, a bit better.
So it really depends on the situation. You have to guys someone better, and you have to adapt on the situation.
Yeah, I think I got you, mate. So I tell you what, Billy, I'll jump in because you are breaking up a little bit. Or was it just me, guys? Can you guys hear Billy? You're good? No. Okay. So for me, yeah, I think I picked up a couple of things, Billy. Punishing is you're punishing the bad guys for getting in the way. So you want to punish somebody, anybody gets and hunts that ball or tries to steal it, you need to punish them, which is hitting them, removing them from the situation. You know, you might have to protect the ball if you don't get there in time, and the threats are coming pretty hard. You might have to protect it, which I saw a lot of in that last match. What we want to try and promote is pass. So you can either anybody can be a halfback. We trained all our halfbacks when I was in Ireland, all our forwards to be able to pass off the ground as a halfback pass. So they actually did a halfback passing activities with me a couple of times a week. Or play, which is to offload, pick and go, all those sorts of things. So those are our options of our roles and support. And we have that long to make that decision. So we have to familiarize our players with the pictures that they see in front of them and what is the best tool to pull out at that time. A lot of it will come down to your game plan or your patterns of play as well. So I'm just reading a message. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's right, Billy. Thanks, mate. I got your message. Perfect. Yeah, cool. So Billy just basically was saying the things that I just mentioned here. So cheers, mate. So here we go. So in our pre-contact, we need to identify our threats and our opportunities. We need to communicate them. Again, we need to position early. So it's that you need to be there. You can't be late. If you want to win the breakdown, you need to be there, and you need to win that race to look after your ball carrier. You need to then communicate that so your ball carrier knows you're there. And you also need to communicate to any other support players. I've got the left, I've got right, whatever you're doing, whatever your roles might be. So the more communication happens there, it can also, the communication be identifying those threats so your teammates know that there's a threat coming in from the inside. What's the inside man? Or look at the outside man. You know, there's a great example in the final for you guys of two guys blasting and clearing the ruck really well. Whether it was the right decision or not, I don't know, but it was very well done. Okay, and the ball was sitting there, so I guess we got the right result. So a little activity that you can do here. So we're combining a little bit of body height. These are our threats. They usually have a bit of a chat amongst themselves and say what they're going to do. If they're going to go hard at the man coming through. This is the supposed tackle area. And I'll just so it's just getting used to the body area, body height. They saw threats over the ball that they had to remove. This time, threats were already there. So let's set. We've lost that one. We're not going to win it. Move it into a little bit more dynamic. Get the footwork. Outside clean, inside man looking after the ball. Those are the other forwards rolling around and practicing their pick and pass. We would do this sort of activity a lot. And I'll show you a couple of other variations in a moment. So there's no backs involved here at all. This is just the forwards. So this is just an activity that we would do with them, just for them. So no halfbacks passing the ball off the ground. It's all done by the forwards. No backs carrying around the corner. It's all forwards. We make it quite a narrow space. So there's that sideline over the far side. Makes them keep working square. Makes them coming onto the board dynamic. Makes them position early. So there's a lot in a little activity like that, and using an activity like that or a variation that you create yourself that works with your team, it's worthwhile time spent. And you can get rid of the pads and you can make it full noise contact if you like, which we would do at some stage through our week. This one's a little bit about we talked about the approach. So we try and get our guys to kind of go through the gate. I know that gate's kind of a bit of a blurred line a lot of the times, but just try and get our guys coming in square if we can, just to get the good habits in, and knowing that in a match situation that line might blur a little bit. So just got a couple of obstacles here that Jake has to jump over just to get under my pad and used to drive through. Same with this guy, Jay. What I like there, Jay. So this is me, Hendrik, talking about that body height you're talking about. So if we can keep you guys coming through at that angle right through the contact. Back in the old days, we used to say aeroplane tape and lift it up and lift it up. Not so relevant so much now. This guy's just driving straight on a straight line. Makes more sense. So that'll work if they keep their feet under them. Jake rises a little bit there. But it's about using their footwork and understanding these big bodies and things like that all over the place is quite a good little thing. Again, it's just activity. You can set that up on the side. These two players were injured. So that's why they were doing that. They were out for the week. And then as we get tackled, we've got to make our decisions, so we're making a tackle here. So we're removing the threats. Again, it's about body height. It's about staying low. It's identifying the threats as they come up. pretty easy the first couple. So I've got you see how I've got 2 lines here? That's just to keep them low longer. Okay, it's okay to overemphasize this sort of stuff at trainings because it just makes we start to build habits about them staying low, because it's amazing how quick the guys will get up. So make them work a bit harder. I saw the Scottish team about Shingos 30 years ago. They did all their forward ruck work under a fishing net that they strung out between the goalposts, and I thought that worked pretty well. So that's my version of it. So we might just throw a little bit of decision making in here now. The ball's loose, how do they react? So instead of parking over the ball is now loose, it's available, let's play. There was no threat in that area. The space was opened up because we told this guy over here to hold back a bit. So create little things for them. Always have a bit of a laugh about it, especially Bundy. But they're guys that bring it up and mix it up a bit for the boys and make them start to have their heads up when they're going through. Make sense, team? I'm trying to show you as many little activities as I can here, so it gives you some ideas of things you can do. To help our players keep low, we use the term spider. So all they're going to do is hit the pad and spider their bodies down the pad to keep their body height. So it's very similar to some of the footage from your match that I saw, where the players are staying low and creeping to get in their case, seal over the ball. So all it is that simple little hand pattern on the pole. You can see Dave does it here. Once he hits the pad, he's up and he spiders through, and he just has to be strong there. And then we might try and smack him with a pad to see how strong he is. This has got a handle on it. He can grip onto that as if he's gripped onto one of his players, and then we can try and counter ruck him off it. Would be where we'd go from there. So again, activities you can do with not a lot of equipment, and these, to be fair, these things are pretty much good for nothing else. These pads, we very rarely use them anymore. Now, we talked about feet under. So this video, it's hard to really see, but if you watch this guy in his first plane here,
give him a cuddle too, Band, at the end.
So if you look here, his feet are left behind, and he's basically lunging at the pad. Okay, so when he carries through, see, he's got that little bit of a flop onto the pad. He bounces up really quick, but that pad will help him do that anyhow. Okay, so the irony of this, that guy's a forward, this next guy's a back.
You're going down that, mate?
With this guy, he's got his foot under him here to keep going. This one's coming through. It looks very similar at a glance. But see how he's up and his feet are running forward really quickly. So when he gets to that stage there, this boot here, he needs to dig that in a bit quicker to get himself traveling down through the ball like that. A little wee thing, but the guys that leave their feet behind will end up flopping into the breakdown, and if they get jammed in there by somebody hitting over the top, it's going to create a really slow ball. Then this is where we bring out.
I just had a question about the. Yep. Sorry for interrupting. I just noticed the second player going into contact had right foot close in tackling with his left shoulder, I think. Is there like a specific, like same shoulder, same leg approach,
yeah,
or it doesn't really matter in this situation?
There is. Yeah, it is same shoulder, same foot, just like in a tackle. Yeah. Yeah, and he's got that wrong. However, from his level of an approach, it's going to work out okay for him, you know. But in a tackle, I would be definite in the tackle, you know. For him here, his work on there would be that. And that's well spotted there, Andrew. Well spotted, mate. You're going to go to the top with that sort of eyesight, mate. But see, that's really good. That's really good. But it's again, the focus of that was really getting those feet up and getting them driving through. But yeah, well done, mate. Because that's the thing that would be his work on. He has to get around that corner, square up, and make his tackle, which is kind of unrealistic in a game. You know, coming from that angle in a game, squaring up and getting that foot would be difficult for him to do. But well spotted, mate. Like it. I like it. You'll get a job easy now, mate. Piece of cake. So, again, getting out. This is where we can bring our contact and our breakdown. Our offloads and other things through. Our depth is a thing we need to worry about. Is a common thing is support players arriving at the same time, and all of a sudden they're fighting for that same like a bit of space. So in a game, it rarely happens, but if it does, it can be you can lose your effectiveness of your clean out. So for me, I'd be looking at whatever you do, set up your scenarios so they arrive in a stagger, because that's more than likely is what's going to happen in a match. Their depth around the ball carrier, they need to not be too deep because that's when they tend to get left behind. And there's that era of separation. So understanding their roles is a good thing there. So that's where the communication comes in, knowing who's going to carry. And then they need to accelerate through contact. So don't die, as we said earlier, with the ball carrier. The support guys need to do the same. We'll talk a little bit. I'll show you some footage. We'll talk about tackle the tackler and roles like that for those support guys as well. It's good that they can keep their feet if they can. Good that they're low and they're strong. And if they can pass, protect, or play is what we're looking for. Nothing that you guys won't have already known. So somebody said about the setup of, I guess you were talking about your carry groups and things like that. For this is pretty much the setup that a carry group would go for. This person could be a forward if you're running a 2-4-2 pattern. If you're running a 1-3-3-1 pattern, it could be different. But any breakdown scenario, if there's a ball carrier, it's good to get two people around them if you can. So some teams will go ball carrier +1 at the breakdown. If you want to look after the ball and you really want to keep it, I'd go ball carrier +2. In heavy traffic situations, we have gone ball carrier +3. Situations where you're trying to set up for something else and you're trying to and retaining that ball is vital, then you're better off to throw an extra guy in there to make sure you get that ball as to go too light and lose it. So here's a little bit of some of this footage is pretty rough and it's not perfect, but in this one here, Ali, he was one of the big ball carriers for us in our Irish team. The boys do a few things wrong here. See if you can see them. So that first one was pretty messy. Ali did a bit of footwork, but his hips aren't going where we want him to go now. So he needs to get this leg around to square up, which he doesn't. He's also too high. I'm going to show you a very, very similar picture in the match footage. And we'll talk about the roles here of the support players. So as you can see here, the outside man has gone to the ball where he should have got rid of him. The inside man gets late. He does basically nothing. Kind of gets rid of that guy there. Ball's a bit messy. He ends up putting a roof on it, which the inside guy's role would be that, to go to the ball. But he's delayed to get to the ball because of the ineffective work here. Get it a bit messy. Trying to get it out. This one out here, similar. So Dave breaks out here. This man's too narrow, so he's parked in behind him. He's lost the race already, so we've lost that almost. This guy comes and saves the day by coming from the outside and removing, then we put a roof. So we had 4 guys basically go to that breakdown. But we needed our Rodney here to be into this space a lot quicker than he is right now. Or at least that player. So it's messy, ugly, got the ball, but that's not good enough. Okay, so, and I'll go back and I think it's, this is a match as well. And again, so this is, the reason I've got these 2 clips here is because things are done wrong, but you can see, and you can still get away with it at some stage, as long as everybody's committed. So we carry here. We've lost the race, but because we stayed in the hunt, oopsie, we're able to, because we stayed in the hunt, we're able to still kind of come out of it okay. But if you see here, bit of hesitation here, this guy here is too far away. So if you watch his line, so I'm not a big fan of this big pointy arrow because it puts these guys away and it's obvious who's going to get the ball. We're a team that used to tip a lot, so it was probably that threat that the opposition were worrying about. But Dennis here, he's off to the races. He's off to the next phase, this guy, where the ball is the key. So because he hasn't gone into this space here now to look after the ball, we've got that moment of separation. Tom's got bumped out by this guy, so he needs to be on that fella there. And then when Danny goes to ground, Dennis should be in there now, and Tom should be removing people. This guy should be removing people. This guy should be in there. So just, we get the ball back because they were both committed, and once they got in there, they just got their feet working and removed the guy. But we wasted a bullet there. So by wasting a bullet, we banned 1 man, 1 bullet. I don't know if you've heard that. It's probably not a politically correct thing to say these days, but yeah, 1 man, 1 bullet. So if there's 1 man over the ball, we only want 1 man to get rid of him a lot of the time. Okay. So hopefully I'll be able to go back to where I want. Cool. So that's the sort of pattern, and that's the sort of thing that we look at. For me, this person is really important, the person at the back. If this is your carry group, for example, that's often a back, correct? That person is vital in the way that I coach these guys. This person I call the navigator, and wherever that person is, the B guy has to find. So that will give you width. So we talked about that work off the ball. So if they understand to work off the ball, looking for the navigator, that'll give them the width so that the 9 isn't just handing them the ball. If you're playing 10 and your forwards are out here, then your navigator would be your 12. That'll bring a lot more clarity to the way your groups operate just by doing that one thing. This protecting the ball. So this is a different side, obviously. So this, you can see it a little bit clearer in one of these 2 clips here. So that's just training the inside man. So simple little activity. Tackle, inside man, hunt. And he's trying to win the race. So these 2 guys are having a race to get over that ball. Poor body height. His shoulders are lower than his hips. It's not bent at the knees. There's all sorts of things we'd want to fix there. This next clip shows it a little bit better. So Jerome gets to the outside there. Outside man is removed. This guy's a bit slow because he's too busy playing around with this guy. Okay, because this guy here is a threat. So this man here, he's got a suit on. His job is to try and get that ball. Okay. We got there eventually, but we're a bit slow. We've kind of wasted 2 guys there. The second one here, Jerome does the same thing. Gets into that outside space. This guy does nothing. But Billy clears it up on the inside there and kind of looks after the ball. But simple activities. These are fully professional players. There's an All Black or two in there. So there's a lot of these activities are worthwhile spending a bit of time on, understanding their roles and getting them into that position. What we haven't done from here is brought a little bit more movement, which is what you would go to next. So you'd bring your 10s and your 9s and your 12s, and you'd get these guys working themselves to get into those positions, which is actually an activity I'll be doing tonight with the ladies I'm working with tonight. I've got here costing, and I'll show you an example of that later. So that is basically how you can protect the man over the ball to stop the counter ruck. And I've got an example of that. I'll pop up when we get to it. Okay, guys.
There's a question from Billy.
Hey, there's a question. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Billy. Throw it in there, mate. Beat the pass or have protocol scenario again. Kids are sleeping now. Eh? How do you manage the reaction quickness from form? The support can expect the pass. Yeah. Okay. So we always have them. They always need to be expectant of a pass. And see the alignment that I have here. So this guy would only be slightly promoted. This guy would be wider. He's our pass or our tip option. This guy is closer because he's our protector. So a lot of teams these guys will be in a little bit of a bunch, where if you move your C-man a little bit wider, it's going to open up something in the defense because the defender's going to come out and defend him. And if we want to tip, he can attack into that space really quickly, or he can even bounce into an outdoor space. But usually if you activate this guy, he can bounce into that outside space there. So this guy can backdoor, for example, to this guy. So our support guys need to understand that their roles can change in an instant. The only guy that we might preempt a pass would be the A guy, because they get they'll often drop into this space here because we want our A guy to get in behind. So if this guy goes to ground, it'd probably be the A guy he'll pop the ball to, as opposed to the C. The C guy will stay out and keep the space. The A guy, so if we're going to pop one, it'll probably be from his inside man. Does that answer your question, Billy? I'm reading. Thanks. Okay, cool.
One more question on that. Do you target in a slow ball with the ball carriers always the transition zone between the C and the D defender?
Say that again. Say that again, Dirk.
Do you target in a slow ball?
Yeah.
With your pot and your navigator always the seam between the C and the D defender?
Not always. Not always. I just like them out here to provide that space. You know, sometimes the B will be quite just directly in front of him. But on a slow ball, if the ruck over here is slow, is that the one you're talking about? Yeah, if that ruck there is slow, I'd still have my navigator there for the fact that I still want them to not know exactly what we might be going to do. The thing is, where we go wrong here is if these guys are only ever going to carry, where a lot of teams go wrong is this person here leaves early. So the halfback's hardly even passing the ball and this guy's already gone. Well, you might as well, put up a big sign saying we're going to carry. So any opportunity you have to cause any confusion here, I would 100% have somebody around there. You know, it's just like when our back's having a back attack. If you've got one man sitting behind that back line, you can't ignore him, eh? You know, so similar concept. All good, Dirk?
I guess, Dave, you could probably, probably mix it up a bit without always carrying it up, just sometimes playing out the back and maybe carrying it up in a bit wider, because that might...
Yeah,
Mix
totally.
it up a bit.
Yeah, totally. Like we have, and I guess you guys would have it as well. Like we're either doing it off 9 or we're doing it off 10. You know, so we have we use bow and arrow as our call, for example. So if it's a bow, 9 will pass to the carrying forwards. If it's an arrow, the ball will go from 9 to 10, then to the carrying forwards. So
Yeah.
we mix up like that. The other thing is too, if you're running a 2-4-2 pattern, the 4 pattern gives you a little bit more flexibility with that 4th guy, how you want to use him as well. We promoted tips. We promote double tips sometimes. Hitting the A-man is fraught with danger because the A-man gets clobbered. There's often no support on the inside.
Yeah.
And you're kind of vulnerable in that area because that's where usually the teams will hunt from.
The 2-4-2 though gives you the option of always generating the fast second phase. So.
Oh yeah, it really does. But also the playmaking options that you can create from it as well. You know, like particularly with that 4th guy and how you use him. You know, you can. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways that you can use them. We used to use them in various ways as well. Sometimes as a carrying threat, sometimes as a clean out threat, sometimes just to not do anything and stay out wide and run a different line. So this is what I really think is where you guys and creative coaches can really make some hay here. This is an area of the game that I think can still be built upon. So we don't want to go back to, we don't want to be predictable. We don't want to be just boring, really. You know, we want to be able to be far more creative out there. The game's in trouble at the moment, I think, for boredom. So I think if you can promote offloads, if you can promote variation, if you can create players who are doing different roles and are comfortable with them, then we can hopefully build some excitement back into the game again. Sorry, Sean, I got me on my soapbox there.
Sorry, mate. Okay.
I know, that's good, mate. So building the components. So this is a method that I thought I was clever and I came up with it, but I'm pretty sure it's been an educational method for years. But because I didn't have a very good schooling, I never got exposed to it. But this method works really, really well at any level for teaching what you're trying to do. So for me, skill, drill, game, skill number 2, another drill that focuses on that, a game that focuses on that, and then et cetera, et cetera. So I'll show you a build-up of it, but this will get your message across quicker than any other coaching method I've used in anything. And it doesn't matter what age it is. So if we started with that 3-step footwork thing that I showed you at the beginning, then we'll just amp it up a little bit by having 2 little groups doing it. That's a drill. And then we'll go out and we'll play a game. And the whole focus of the game is that skill, is that 3-step footwork. Everything else is on. They're still passing. They're still playing a game. However, they always get pinged if there's no footwork. So you just blow the whistle. And initially when you'll play that, you'll find you'll be blowing the whistle a heck of a lot, because they'll forget and they'll try and do other things. But the fun of the game brings some positives, because a drill is great to understand the skill in motion, but a game brings decision making, and a game brings awareness, and a game brings what do they do with space, because the space is not prescribed. It's not 4 cones in a corner like we used to do, or like I still do for some activities. But a game brings that random atmosphere, or that random atmosphere to them, that they have to then react in different ways. And that's where the gold really can happen. And if they're only focusing on one small part of it, then even the engagement will be even higher. So then I'd go back and would do ball present, footwork like that, and then leg drive. So we'll do a little activity with leg drive, hitting a shield, pump, 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 sort of thing. Then you go out and you'll play a game that's got footwork and leg drives in it. So you might let the guy, the touch you might just grab onto the player, and the player has to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as they pump their legs. You know, so whatever way you can think of incorporating that, and then you just move your way through. So I've got a little, I knocked up this little diagram yesterday to kind of give you an idea of how you can do it. So stage 1, again, we just talked about that. Stage 2, we just talked about that. So these are just pad holders before you play the game. Stage 3, it's about ball presentation. So you might want to just start with one method of ball presentation, which might be score the try. Okay, it might be the pop if that's what you want to go to. Stage 4, again, everything else is the same. Score the try, but then you've got a support player now who's number 2. He might remove a threat, or put a roof on it, or whatever this guy does. You can create different scenarios around this guy. Then stage 5, footwork, leg drive, score the try or pop. So now there's a bit of variation, and you can pick. And I've just got chainsaw there for pick because you want it to be a rapid pick. It's not just a guy who sits over the ball and thinks, okay, now I'll have a go. That's different. A chainsaw for me is ball's there, I'm gone. Boom, straight up. It's available and we're moving away with it straight away. So that would be a tactic, I guess, that I would be incorporating. Be a really rapid pick. And then this one here, you bring in a third player. These guys can, there's a bit more evasion going on here. There might be the guy might offload pre-contact coming through here, which you would encourage. You know, this guy, you can move these guys, you can make these guys do different things to create different pitches. So these guys have different decisions. Again, you're in control of all this as a coach. These are controllable areas, but once they get out into the game, then you're not controlling these things. So they have to learn them. But here, you're showing them the picture. So, for example, when the guy beats this guy here, this player might be out, you might position him out here somewhere. So then he might just backdoor offload or just pop to the number 2 guy who'll come through here, which then incorporates number 3 to track through and become a support player and the first guy to change their roles. So you can just mix it up, how the picture that you want them to see, but then when they get out and play the game, that picture is going to be randomized. So hopefully what you've taught here will transfer into their game scenario. Does that make sense, guys? This works really well. Works really well. And it's kind of fun. You don't have players standing around too long. Like they'll be doing this for a couple of minutes, then boom, the game might only go for about 5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, 2 minutes even, and then straight back into the next phase. And it's up to you how much you want to carry and cover in a day. Like you can get through all of this if that's your sole focus for one training, you could do all of this in one training. If it's just a portion of your training, you might only do a couple of parts of it, and then the next training. Okay, so this is the footage I was talking about. So we're almost there, guys. I know I've been talking for a long time. So I guess you guys all know this match, eh? Yep. So I've got this in sports code, but I can't show it with all the little cuts and the notes I had. So I'm just going to try and remember where I stopped it. So I just put this little lot together. Okay, so ball presentation. He got tossed around. Pencil is probably a good ball presentation under that situation, I reckon. Nice and long. What could this guy have done better?
There's no need for him to join the ruck. He can pick up the
No,
ball.
he probably could have moved it. Or he's in that brace situation. This is what I was talking about costing. So if there's a counter ruck coming on, say the concept is right, but to cost this knee, I'm going to be a bit straightforward talking here, fellas. This knee needs to be right up his ass. So in the seam of his arsehole is what I'm saying. Sorry to be so blunt, but that there will give him greater stability. So when the ruck comes back, at the moment, there's a little bit of separation. So on that hit, he can get rocked back a little bit. But they've done really well here. The concept is good. It's just that that's a situation you can be counter-upped if these big guys decided to counter-up. Because a little bit more weight is coming back through your butt through here as well. But apart from that, a good pencil place, and he was forced into that. I did notice a lot of this sort of tackling in this game, where guys basically finish up there, you know, which is not a great place to finish up if you're the tackler. Next one. Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of it here. So the boy's going around the corner a couple of times. I think it's this one. Okay, so there's that same picture again. Okay. Again, this one is actually a better picture for if they were going to counter ruck, but to drive over, I would prefer this man's shoulder to be here. So then you got 4 feet on the ground going that way. If you want to generate enough momentum to drive through on a spike type activity. So we would have 2 different sorts of snake. This one is a little bit of space. There's not a lot of players around, so that can be a drive situation. Another way, you might have 2 guys doing that if the ball is under threat. So if there's a lot of heat here, you might do that situation, but there's not a lot of heat here, and it's a straight drive. Just a suggestion, guys, just looking at the game. You can take that however you want, but these are just, I'm just kind of demonstrating different things that different people see in different situations. Hope I haven't offended anybody. See, this guy gets buckled back, so there's no power there, because if the man was on the hip and he'd stayed low, he might have been able to spit straight through that space. The goalpost doesn't help though. Okay, big carry here. This is all about the clean out. Yeah, you can't do that. So about losing the battle here, he's lost the battle. But then again, that's a great body shape. That's great body shape. But what's missing, guys? What's missing from this man here? What's his job? What's he trying to do?
He's trying to steal the ball.
Yeah, he's trying to jackal A, is what somebody's got here. He's trying to get the ball, but is he? Is my question. So we're a big fan of the jackal. I love the jackal, but we've got to train the guy to go get the ball. Like, go get the ball and get it to your chest. So when you train the jackal, get them to get the ball off the ground and to their chest as quick as you possibly can, because it paints half a picture to the referee, you know, that he might be just trying to get in there and be a nuisance, which again is a good thing to do. Okay, but really sell it. Like, he doesn't get the penalty here that he should have got, because he fell off his feet. But if he had the ball when he got through that situation, it might have been a different question. So just really, when you're training your jackal, really work on him getting the ball from the ground to the chest as quick as he possibly can. And that's an instruction that's kind of carried around New Zealand here at the moment too, is making sure that's you're clearly getting it, not just putting your hand on the ball and pulling on a jersey and pretending. Actually go get the ball. And just makes a better picture for the referees. But yeah, I'm surprised that the referee ignored that one. And I think that guy there is totally surprised that he didn't get it. So
I just had a question about the way the number 6 is carrying his ball into contact.
Yep. Good man.
He's carrying it towards the defender.
Yeah.
Would you swap sides, or
Yeah.
it's
his ball should
I
be
always try to get the ball away from the contact, but in this
Yep.
space, the defender's definitely not a threat.
Yeah, no, he should have. He should definitely have had that. But I think his threat comes this guy. So if his threat's that guy, so he probably was thinking, should I better get my fend out to look after him? But yeah, you're right. And that's, you do a lot of activities on quick ball transfer as well. I do a lot of juggling with the players. And part of the juggling that I do is a 3-ball juggle with 2 players. So there's a quick transfer of the ball before you pass it on in the juggle that I do. Just to help with that quick transfer of the ball, understanding transfer, fend, and things like that. So yeah, man, you got the eye for detail, Hendrik. You need to be a skills coach, mate. Get onto it. But yeah, you're right there. And then there's that quick transfer. There's a couple of things you could do better here. And I'll show you. I've got a better example coming up though. Okay, this one here. So just watch this one here. So we can't see it because this guy's in the way. But once we get the carry goes through here. Okay, so who's the biggest threat to the ball right now? I'll move it on a little bit. Ten. Is that one?
Yeah, that's the guy directly in front.
Yeah. So he is the biggest threat to the ball, but there's nobody at this. We're a man down here, aren't we, in our clean out? If you think about the process that we looked at before, this guy's actually got his hand on the ball. This guy's got his hand on the ball. So for me, ball carrier's job, what was it? One of the things we said right at the very beginning. Fight, fight, fight. Fight, fight, fight. So he fights this guy. He fights this guy and makes him work his ass off. Because we're a man down, this guy's got to latch onto the ball. He's got his hands on the ball here. So we need this guy out of the picture. This guy needs to be tackled. So we tackle the tackler. He needs to be gone. So nobody's looked after him. So this guy's done a great job staying in the fight. And this guy maybe could have trusted him to stay in the fight and just got rid of this guy. But we really talk a lot about tackle the tackler because he rips the ball out this guy. Even he should be gone by now, fellas. This is the try for all money. This guy is separated. If you had this guy fighting, this guy cleaning them, and another guy getting rid of that guy, that was a try under the sticks all day. Okay? Because there's a lot of momentum going on there. But if you see, this guy gets the ball and just rips it out. So understanding our roles at the breakdown is important there. When we carried, we weren't set early. Those 2 guys were. There's no third guy there to help them out. So somebody has to react and look after that inside space. At this footage here, they're in good shape, but there's nobody here coming through. Would that make sense to anybody? Yeah. So because we've got to that stage there, it's just 2 guys fighting because the reason is, and this happens a lot, is the other 13 guys are looking to score. So that's what the problem is there. There's 13 other guys looking to think, how the hell am I going to score a try here? Where they should be looking after their mates here, and the school will look after itself. Really, really common. And usually up close to the goalposts, where everybody goes, shit, I'm in space here, I might score. So they hold their space instead of looking after the ball. Make sense? Oh, got a chat. Yeah, cool. Got it. Yeah, you Billy. Watching here. Okay, guy does a good job. Okay, so where's his shoulders and where's his hips facing? The sideline, not upfield. So he's kind of looking sideways here. So really important thing here, and I'll show it in the last clip as well, is if you go square onto this guy, hit with that shoulder. This guy's doing a really good job trying to get rid of him. This guy's almost a hindrance. And sometimes we have to be careful with our latch players that they don't latch on too soon. because it inhibits the ball carrier's ability to be evasive. Because basically you got a guy wrapped around you already. You know, so it's really hard for them to change or adjust or do different things. Particularly dangerous with kids if they get them latching on too soon, because a little kid will just drive a big kid will just drive a little kid into a bad place. But it would have been great if this guy could have dropped that shoulder to the ground and fought a little bit harder with his upper body to place the ball in a clean situation. This is the biggest no-no in ball carrying, is landing on your back. That is the biggest no-no. So whatever you do, you do not want your players to land on the back. And he could have saved that if he just got really violent and twisted this shoulder around, say, finish with the ball on that side. So I do a lot of wrestling in your warm-up stuff, competitive stuff. You know, two guys with the ball. Guy with the ball's got to get to ground. The other guy's got to hold them up. And they just, at training, and they just go for it. Okay, understanding you don't want to end up landing like that. You don't want to be turtled. Okay. That's that one. And this is what I was talking about there. So on the carry, Hendrik, about taking off up. Okay, so he's lost a lot of his leg drive there. He's a big man. He's done a pretty good job. He's been able to adjust again, but he's gone to ground not on his terms. He's gone to ground on the defense's terms, if that makes sense. Okay, and he's landed on his shoulder, and that ball should have been jackled. Okay, so there are lots of jackal opportunities in this game I saw from both sides. And there were some good attempts, but because they didn't go and get the ball, they just put their arms in there. You're not going to get it. You've got to get, the intent has to always be to get the ball to your chest. And that'll just change the pictures that you'll see straight away. Lots of activities on jackal activities. Okay, this is the last one. Big man, there's a carry here. Guys are in good position. These two guys actually do really clean out and do a good job. But biggest threat to the ball at the moment is who? That guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. He's the biggest threat to the ball. He's on his feet. He's in a position to rip this guy to the ground, and he's in a position to hunt. Okay. So what's happened here with our two support guys? We're too narrow. Pre-latching a bit there. What we want this guy to do, and we did this in Ireland. We were getting beaten in the breakdown by teams. So what we did is we had a philosophy that we always place the ball on the outside. Simple philosophy. We're always, when we can, it's not always possible, we're always going to look to place the ball on the outside. So if this guy knows that guy is going to place the ball out here, by the time we get to this situation, this guy's gone. So he's already out of the picture, because this guy would just clean him straight out. Okay, him and his buddy on the far side do a great job at a double clean out, but that's two men for one bullet. Where here you could have used one bullet, got rid of that guy. Then next guy in back here, he's over the ball protecting if there are more threats, which there could be, and then your nine's in, and also. There's none of this sort of rubbish for the 9 to worry about, because the ball's out here. Quick LQB, bang, out to your backs. So that one simple change would change that from a slow ruck to a quick ruck real quickly. Outside place, get rid of that guy. This guy's not in the picture because the ball's out. This guy's not in the picture because the ball's out here. This guy's just cleared out over the ball and removed that guy. That guy's gone to the ball. Halfback should already have it in his hands by the time you get to there. Makes a massive difference to your game and can really change ruck speed instantly. Other teams will pick it up, other teams will go, oh, they always place the ball on the outside. Tough luck. They still have to win that race. You know what I mean? So they still have to win that race. So it's okay to have that policy. We played a whole season with it and we won the competition with it. Pro 12. So it really worked for us, you know, and then, you know, everything else could come from that would be offloads, etc., etc. If he falls this way, he's in a great position to pop if he has to. If he breaks to the outside here, so he's outside this guy now, he's not going into there, he's outside this guy, this arm's free, there's your offload. Okay, because this guy is holding width out here. So all of a sudden your options just increase immensely by that one simple activity. Oh, I'll get out now, guys. I'll stop my sharing. So I've talked for a long time, and I apologize for that. But have any questions for a start? Christ, was I that boring, guys? Yeah, skill development and game sense. Billy, yeah, I think the balance there, I think with your skill development, I think if it follows that pattern that I laid out earlier, like I'm a skills coach. Majority of the time I'm a skills coach, part-time backs coach, part-time everything coach, really. But I think getting that balance is, for me, is it's worth getting the detail right, the little tricky stuff that they all hate, getting that right, but then incorporating it into skills, into a game side scenario as quickly as possible, so they get to feel what the difference is between doing it well and doing it poorly. Billy, does that kind of answer your question a little bit? For me, the technical side of that skill needs to be performed really well. And like I've had players, we've had some wonderfully gifted players in New Zealand who do everything wrong. But the result is what you're after. And if the result is what you're after, then leave them alone. You know, I was really lucky with the Blues to coach Sonny Bill. Like, nobody was going to go up to Sonny Bill and tell him, don't throw the ball out the back of your hand. That would be the dumbest thing any coach could ever do, because he was really good at it. And it was a weapon. So, you know, if your players are good at something, but it's not technically how you think it should be done, as long as the result works well for you and for them and for the team, then I'd leave them alone. We can overcoach our players, and I think sometimes we tend to, because we tend to think, gee, I'm a coach, I better justify my job. So I better tell them something negative today to make them know that I know a little bit more than them. And that's really easy. I see a lot of coaches doing that. So obviously not you guys. You wouldn't be doing things like that. But you know, it's amazing how we can feel that we have to find fault with something just to justify that we're the coach. We don't have to. If they're doing it fine, leave them alone. And actually encourage them. Theo, yes, you have a hand raised.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to be clear. Sorry for my English if it's a bit rusty.
You're fine.
Cool. What's for you, when does the activity of the support player stopped? If I'm the outside player, it's the first threat on the ball. Do you expect from me to put the support on the ground or move forward to break the defensive line with moving around the trail? What's your first target?
Yeah, good question. If you can get them to ground, great. Long as you're in a good position, like you land on top. So getting them to ground is great, because that creates that speed bump, you know, that makes them have to run all the way around. You know, we're talking about the same thing there, aren't we, Tao, about creating that area so the opposition have to go around in a big loop to get back set up. Yeah. So I think if you can put them on the ground, great. but you want to be on top so you can get back in front of the game a lot quicker than they can. If not, then I think you just need to try and get them around that corner a little bit, you know, so you can open up that space for the ball to move quicker. Does that answer your question, mate?
Yeah. My question was really what by order, what's the first aim, second and third, to see how to organize or favorize those steps. Just
Yeah, that outside guy for me, remove the threat. He's the threat man. But it comes down to your carry, as I said at the beginning. So if your carry does that outside break, you know, which we showed in those diagrams, you know, if they makes that outside break hitting that space, then the first threat should be right in his line, sort of deal, you know. And if there's no threat there, then he's the tip pass or the offload option. But then he should remove the first threat, and if the next guy goes to the ball, he should beat the inside man to it if he understands. I'll see if I can find that diagram. I'll bring up my screen share again. Oh God, I closed it. Okay, give me a second, guys. I'll open it in the background again. And I'll go to you guys, share my screen. And if you look at that diagram there again, the space that this guy opens up by being apart from him is creating a space for this guy to basically put his footwork on, okay? Which is kind of makes this guy the defender who wants to get here. He's a little bit further away now. If this guy stays out here, would probably just give a little tip pass to this guy. If this guy comes in, then he gets rid of him, and we should win the race. This guy should win the race to that space over the ball. So if we can set ourselves up with that sort of an idea, we're usually going to do fairly well. Of course, you know, breakdown's a thing where there's a multitude of other things going on. There's other people who climb in from different areas, and there's people getting up off the ground and things like that. So we have to be always aware of that. But if you can keep that area as clean as you possibly can, it's going to be far more effective for you as attackers. Does that kind of show a little bit more, Theo, about what you were asking?
Yeah, more or less. It's clear anyway. You answered before, so it's cool.
Yeah, okay, mate. Like he's C for threat. He gets the threat. The threat could come from anywhere, but he's got to get the threat. Yeah. So
yeah.
But you'll always get this guy. This guy might be slow. This guy might get there quicker. All those variations will come into it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, maybe I can try to formulate differently. I understand everything here. My question was more about, is it a thing that you ask to your players to, when you have done everything to eliminate the threat, take the space and everything, to break the defensive line replacement? You know, like you see all the red shirts. Imagine you hit the space between B and C, and the defenders on the left will go on right. Do you ask to the C to, when he have done to clean everything, to go further, to just annoy the players in red who are moving forwards, you know, to slow them more? Is it something that you work on it, or you ask to the players to do it, or they just do on their own initiative? Is it more clear?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now, mate. I would say tackle get him on the ground, priority number one. You know, so priority number one is get that guy on the ground, as we talked about before, to make the speed bump. The next role after that, I wouldn't actively promote them to be obstructive, because if they're worrying about that, they're not doing the job that I want them to do, which might be to carry on to the next breakdown, for example. So I'm very careful of the language that I would use with my players. The first thing would be tackle the tackler, put him on the ground. You can stand up and be in the way, yeah, but if you're in the front of the ball, you're out of the game. So you're no good to me to continue my attack. If you are stopping their defense a little bit and it's legal, cool. But if you get smacked by one of their guys because you're in the way, that's your fault. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, sure. But if the ruck is fast, it won't be a problem.
that's
isn't it?
correct, mate. If the ruck is fast, it's not a problem at all. The ball's already gone. What I noticed in that game, you know, that game that we watched before, that there was a lot of slow ball. You know, there was a lot of slow ball. There were a lot of bodies over the ball. It wasn't very clean. I thought the backs in both teams were pretty good. They carved a lot of the times, but they never really got a lot of ball. But, you know, you always play to your strengths, don't you? So, but I think if the ball was quicker, yeah, that game would have opened up a little bit more and could have really been quite clever, a kind of good game, you know? So LQB, boys, if you can get it, all good. Yep, Billy, you're onto it. Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, too, that is all comes down to the as you asked him to do it last few. Yeah. So about that tackle the tackler, it needs to be instant or not at all. You need to instantly put him to ground. You can't have a dance with him. You can't have a fight. You got to put him to ground real quickly. So that's why we use the term tackle the tackler as opposed to clean out, for example, because you are tackling. You know, if they're getting over the ball and being a threat, drop them at the knees and get them out of the way. Sometimes you'll have to separate them through the hip. So often if they're trying, especially if they're trying to hold a player up and they'll try and to slow the ball down, then you'll have to separate them from the hip, which means you've got to get your shoulder in through around about their hip area and just run away with them, try and get their feet up and out of the way. Or you just have to try and get your player to the ground as quick as you possibly can. But yeah, the removing the threat thing comes down to it has to be pretty much instant, or else the referee will ping you, especially if you chase them halfway up the field and try and hit them later. Make sense? Cool.
Dave, I have a question.
Yep.
If in this situation, the B gets outside, but if the B gets tackled from outside in, so he's actually inside of his defense, how would the role of A and C change? Would they change?
Yeah, they could do. They could do. So if he chops into this space here, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate that space because that gives this guy the advantage to me. We call it dead man's alley. But a lot of teams will try and force them into that area because then this guy becomes a real threat. Then this guy needs to be able to adjust. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But try to encourage your guys to always get to that outside space if you can. But being aware that if it goes wrong, this guy's going to have to clatter in. There'll be times like if the outline is here, for example, he might try and chop back in because he doesn't want to get out into their space there or get close to getting bundled out. Yeah, so the roles would change.
All right.
But like I said, I promote it. I try and get them not to chop back in.
Yeah, but sometimes the pressure from the defense is so high coming from outside, and then you just forced.
Yeah. No, you're totally right, mate. What you can do if there's outside in defense and you have to chop back into that space, I think if you can secure a quick ball as quick as you can and maybe pick again and pick and into that space again from that, it's amazing. It'll have a bit of an effect on those outside defenders trying to cram in after a while. If they're starting to pick through the middle, those outside defenders will lose a little bit of line speed, but they'll try and do other little tricky methods to try and stop you. But yeah, you're right, mate. Roles change. And that would be something you'd see that a lot in your games. So when you play your randomized games, you'll see a lot of players will do that. So you'll be able to highlight those points then. rush defense. It's a terrible thing. It's effective, but it's a terrible thing. Ask the All Blacks. Anything else, guys? How do you balance between the need for evasion? Oh, yeah. So is that you, Billy, again? Yeah. So asking a question here about the balance between evasion and not targeting the pad and playing for space, and the need of having breakdown to work on it. So I would always promote the evasive side of it as gold. Take away the pads, bring in some arms would be, because a pad is a thing that a lot of players will go looking for. They'll see a pad and they think, well, geez, there's a pad in front of me. I must be supposed to hit that thing. So bring in some full contact. Tackle suits are great if you've got them, if you don't want to bang your players up. And usually we'd bring tackle suits if we knew we were having a hard week in front of us. And I think to try and discourage the players from hitting with the pads, maybe give the pads a little bit of a heads up. So it's amazing if a guy targets a pad, if the pad steps out of the way, instantly they'll fall flat on their face. So it's a good way to teach them about having their feet under them and things like that. I'm sorry, Billy, it's a tough question to answer that. Does that kind of make sense, hopefully? Cool. Thanks, mate. Anything else, guys? I think everything, we covered most things that I'll get rid of my screen sharing again. So the breakdown is our call when I was in Ireland was win the breakdown, win the game. And I think that's still fairly relevant. I think our mindset, though, is we overuse the breakdown as a means for, I think we feel that that's part of the game that we have to always do. Where, we have our backs now, instead of striking to score, they're striking to set up. If your backs are as good as what some of the ones I've seen in those videos, if they can strike to score, strike to score. The mentality of your ball carrier needs to be always, I'm going to break the line. I'm going to fight for space. I think if we start clattering into people all the time deliberately to set up something, smarter teams will eventually not fall for it. And you're going to be committing too many players to a space that you can't use. So breakdown is essential, but it shouldn't be an end goal. I noticed in the final, both sides were quite good pick and goes and mauling teams. So a maul, I guess, is a different way of calling it a breakdown, because it's a moving thing, and it's a weapon, and if you can use it, use it. The All Blacks are going to find that out in the next World Cup. There'll be a few mauls against them for sure, I'd say. So whatever your thoughts on the breakdown and how you want to coach it, always think outcome based. Why are we doing this? Why are we going into contact here? Why are we running this shape, this pattern, for example? Because the world is obsessed with 1-3-3-1s, 2-4-2s, 2-2-2-2, if you've got enough to do that. So everybody's obsessed with those patterns, and all those patterns revolve around the breakdown area. Our breakdown and our patterns, for example, that have breakdown components to them, the better teams I've played with or been involved with and coached, we only prescribe that for 2 phases. Third phase, you'd see what you just played, guys. So encourage your players to play. Don't encourage them to go looking for contact. I know that sounds a little bit la-di-da, a little bit soft, but a very good coach who I have a lot of respect for said to me, why do we play the game on the ground, Dave? Got a good point. We want to keep the ball up in the air. Why play the game on the ground? There's so much space in the rugby field. If we know how to use it, we know how to manipulate people. then we can do that. You'll notice that most of the time when we have the breakdowns, our carry groups are usually congested and quite bunched, you know, and if the opposition are bunched the same way, that means there must be some space somewhere. So I think if you can have the confidence to spread your carry groups, and if you do go into contract, you spread them on the premise that you're trying to spread the defense from the opposition at the same time, then I think you'll have greater success than just using them as a constant place to, I don't know, to bash into a couple of the bad guys and give yourselves a bit of a macho feeling. So look at the breakdown in a way how it works for you in your team environment, and how you can best exploit what you're trying to achieve, find space, etc., etc. All good? Now I am starting to rabbit on and talking rubbish. And it doesn't matter which language you speak, guys, it all sounds rubbish. So go forth and really take some of this stuff and use it however you want. It's been recorded. Yeah, do what you like with it. I'm always around if anybody ever wants to get in touch with me. I've got truckloads of footage here that I got lost in it, so I don't know where it really is sometimes. So I'm always happy to help Dirk. So a mate, so I'm always happy to help Dirk out. He's a good man. And that's it for me, unless there's any further questions. Awesome. So I'll let you all go. So what time is it there, guys?
11
Almost
in
11
the
p.m.
evening.
Oh my crikey, Dirk. Soon goes. Time for bed, fellas. Time for bed.
Thank you, Dick.
Wonderful seeing you guys. Good luck with your coaching. And I know when you got Colin Cooper coming up later on, Coops is brilliant. So enjoy, fellas. Catch you later.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah.
Bye, everyone. See ya.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Have a
Cheers.
nice day.
Bye. Thanks.